श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीम् Page 1, verse 2 Jantunam narajanma durlabham atah pumstvam tato viprata tasmat vaidika dharma marga parata vidvatvam asmat param atmanatma vivechanam svanubhavo brahmatmana samsthitihi muktirno shatakoti janma sukrutaif punnirvina labhyate. In the last class, we looked at the first two verses of the Vivekachudamani. In the first verse, Shankaracharya paid his namaskaras to his guru. And in the second verse, he said that amongst all births, the birth as a human being is very rare and must be cherished and fruitfully used. Even rarer is being born with the authority to study the scriptures. Pumstvam was rarer, he said. And rarer still was Viprata, which is being born as a Brahmana and having this scriptural study as his sole purpose. Following the practices enjoined in the Veda, Tasmat Vaidika Dharma Marga Parata, was rarer still, and Vidvatvam, a thorough understanding of scriptures, was rarer even than following a Vedic way of life. He then spoke about Atma Anatma Vivechanam, the discrimination of the self with the non-self, with the purpose of identifying what that self is. And that identification was what he called Svanubhavaha. That is Brahmagyana, and living a life on the basis of that Brahmagyana, abiding in the knowledge of the identity of the Brahman with the self, was the ultimate aim and the highest culmination point of all human endeavor. Therefore, he had said that to achieve mukti, it is impossible without the punya accrued over several crores of life. Muktirno shatakote janma sukritaif punyair vina labhyate. We had seen this much in the last class. Now, we will look at the invocatory verses composed by the commentator to the Vivekachudamani, the 34th Acharya of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham, Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha. The first invocatory verse is Samsara Sagara Nimagna Janodidhirshuhu Yovatarachhiva Nrsimha Guru Chalena Jadyandhakara Haranam Karuna Samudram Tam Dakshinasya Manisham Hridibhavayami. The 34th Acharya of the Sharada Peetham is paying his namaskaras to his guru, Jagadguru Srimad Satchidananda Shivabhinava Nrsimha Bharati Swaminaha. And he says, I worship incessantly in my heart Dakshinamurti, the Adi Guru, Shiva himself in the Guru form, who is said to be the first propagator of Advaita Vedanta. And he says that Dakshinamurti, who is an ocean of mercy and who destroys the darkness that is ignorance, the inert darkness that is ignorance. Jadyandhakara haranam, he says. And the reason why he says Jadyandhakaram is because ignorance is like a form of darkness, a blindness that hides the true nature of the self from the intellect. And the nature of that darkness is that it is like an inert covering on a lamp. And when that covering on that lamp is removed, the lamp automatically shines. Nothing else is required. All that is required is to remove that covering. And the inertness of that covering is mentioned in contrast to the consciousness, which is the self. So, to draw a distinction between the ignorance and the self, Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha uses the phrase Jadyandhakara. And such a darkness is dispelled by that Dakshinamurti, who is an ocean of compassion and who, out of a desire to rescue those people who have been trapped and are drowning in the ocean of samsara, samsara sagara nimagna janodidhirshuhu, he who desired to do the uddhara of all those people, to essentially rescue all those people who are trapped and drowning in the ocean of samsara, he descended into this earth, Yovataracheva Nrsimha Guruchalena, who has descended into this earth as the form as Shiva Nrsimha Guru, Jagadguru Srimad Satchidananda Shivabhinava Nrsimha Bharati Mahaswamigal, the 33rd Acharya of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham and the Guru of Jagadguru Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswamigal. The second verse is Jnana Swarupe Vagdevi Bhagavat Pada Pujite Chudamanim Vivekadim Vyakurushva Mukhan Mama. He says, O goddess of speech, Vagdevi, who is the embodiment of Jnana, wisdom, intelligence. Jnana Swarupe Vagdevi Bhagavat Pada Pujite, who has been worshipped by Adi Shankara Bhagavat Pada. He says he worships the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of speech, and he says, Chudamanim Vivekadim Vyakurushva Mukhan Mama. Please explain the import of the Vivekachudamani through me, through my lips. May I be able to comment on the Vivekachudamani by your grace. And then the third verse is Prasannanam Gabhiranam Vatasam Deshikeshituhu Bhavastvat Kripaya Chitte Bhasatam Mama Sharade. He describes the words of Acharya Shankara Bhagavat Pada, and he says it is Prasannanam Gabhiranam Vatasam. The words of my Deshika, my Guru, are Prasanna Gambhiram. This Prasanna Gambhiram phrase is often used to describe the writings of Acharya Shankara Bhagavat Pada. And the meaning of that phrase is that Shankara Bhagavat Pada writes in a manner which is relatively simple and people are able to easily understand. But behind each word, each turn of phrase, there is so much depth of meaning that the true expert who has studied this in the tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara will be able to plumb these depths and understand these depths. And therefore, he says, the words of Shankaracharya are Prasanna Gambhiram. They are apparently easy to understand, but there is a lot of hidden depth which can only be discerned by true knowers of Advaita Vedanta. And then he worships Sharada Devi, and he says, may their true meaning, the deep meaning of Acharya's works, may Sharada Devi, may you please shine them in my intellect. May I understand these words so that I am able to comment upon them appropriately. The next verse is Ganesha to dispel all the obstacles in the way. He says, Ratnagarbha Ganeshana Vignadvanta Vibhakara Nirvignam Purayasvemam Vyakhyam Karunya Shevadhe. O Ratnagarbha Ganapati, you are the sun who dispels the darkness that is the obstacles. You are a treasure trove of mercy, Karunya Shevadhe. Bless me to complete this commentary without any obstacles coming in my way. The next verse is Chandramaulishvara Vibho Brahmavidya Samashrita Swanubhutim Prayachashu Chinmudra Vilasatkara. O Chandramoulishwara, you who have Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of Brahman in the form of Uma as your consort. As Shankaracharya says in the Kenopanishad Vakya Bhashya, he says, Umaiva himavato duhita haimavati nityameva sarvagyena ishwarena saha vartate iti. This equation of Uma with Brahmavidya occurs in the Kenopanishad, wherein Parvati, Uma Haimavati, appears in front of Indra as in a flash. And there she represents Brahmavidya. Shankaracharya in that context says Uma is the constant companion of Ishvara. So the usage in this Mangalacharanam by Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha reminds one of the Kenopanishad and Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada's Bhashya. Coming back to the Mangalacharanam, the Jagadguru says that Chandramoulishwara, Lord Shiva, who has the moon, the crescent moon, as his ornament in his head, he says he is displaying the Chinmudra. The Chinmudra is essentially the thumb and the index finger joined together, and the other three fingers held up in the form of a tree. The Chinmudra is a symbol of wisdom, where the thumb and the index finger represent Ishvara and the Jiva, and them being joined is representative of the identity of the Jiva with the Ishvara and the one Atma Tattva that is essentially appearing as the Jiva and the Ishvara. And the other three fingers that are held up represent the fact that the Atma is distinct from the three bodies represented by the three fingers. Essentially, the three fingers represent the Sthula Sukshma Karana Shariras, the physical, the subtle, and the causal bodies. More about it will be discussed in later verses of the Vivekachudamani. But the Chinmudra, essentially, in that one symbol, represents the entirety of Advaita Vedanta and is therefore a denoter of wisdom. The Jagadguru says that Chandramoulishwara, I pray to you that you bless me with the realization of the truth in the form of personal experience. So, with these invocatory verses, Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswamigal starts the commentary proper of the Vivekachudamani. And he starts commenting from the second verse, starting with Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. We will start by reading that commentary. Bhagavad Gitasu Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Pragyavadamscha Bhashase Gatasun Agatasunshcha Nanushochante Panditaha Iti Shlokavate Vivekachudamani Prakarana Pratipadya Kritsnartha Sangrahakoyam Shlokaha Jantunam Ityadihi. He says, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Acharya Shankara Bhagavad Pada says that the Bhagavad Gita proper begins from the verse in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The first part is merely an introduction and sets the stage for Arjuna to ask the questions to Krishna and for Krishna to start the answers. And so the real teaching starts from the Ashocyan Anvashocastvam verse of the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter. And the speciality of that verse is that within it, one can say the entire Bhagavad Gita is contained in a very, very packed manner. Essentially, that sloka is saying, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Pragyavadanscha Bhashase. He says, O Arjuna, you are grieving for those that should not be grieved for. You are speaking the words of the wise people, but really, the wise, the Panditas, do not grieve for the dead or the alive. Neither the people who have arrived nor the people who leave, the wise men are concerned about or worry about. So in that shloka, The entire essence of the Bhagavad Gita is packed. And so Acharya says, like that sloka in the Vivekachudamani too, whatever is to be conveyed in that Prakarana Grantham, Vivekachudamani Prakarana Pratipadya Kritsnartha Sangrahakoyam Shlokaha. The entire meaning of the Vivekachudamani is packed in a nutshell in this particular shloka, starting with Jantuna. The next line, Astikasyaiva Shastridhikarat Prathapam Narajanma Prashastya Kathana Mukhena Sharira Vyatirikta Atmastitvam Tavad Bhanayati Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham iti. Acharya is saying that only the person who is an astika has the right to study the scriptures, and therefore through the medium of praising the human birth, what is being conveyed by Adi Shankaracharya in the second verse is that there exists a soul that is distinct from the body. And that is what is conveyed by the verse Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham iti. Normally, if someone says, I am an astika, he means that I believe in the existence of Ishvara, God. But if one is quite ritualistic, etc., astika can also mean one who believes in the karma theory and in multiple births and in reincarnation. That is also another possible meaning. From a Vedanta perspective, astikatvam means the acknowledgement of the existence of an atma, of a self other than the body. So that is what astikatvam means. Astikyam is what that means. Therefore, the statement Astikasyaiva Shastridhikarat is what is known as a Sutra Vakyam. Now, in a very, very condensed form, Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha is saying that only those that believe in the existence of a soul independent from the body are eligible to study the scriptures. And then, having said that in a very, very short, concise format, he is then going to move forward and look at why that is the case. So, he quotes from the Sharirika Bhashya, which is the Brahma Sutra Bhashya of Shankara Bhagavad Pada. He says, Uktam cha Sharirika Bhashye Shastriye tu Vyavahare Yadyapi Buddhipurvakari Naviditva Atmanaha Paraloka Sambandham Adikriyate iti. As Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada has said in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the truly wise man will not have the pravritti, will not have the inclination to perform the various rituals that have been enjoined in the Veda without having the knowledge and the conviction of the existence of a soul that is independent from the body. And the reason why he says that, if I am performing a ritual and the result of the ritual is that I will be able to ascend to heaven after my death. Now, only a person who believes that there is something that survives death of the body and can therefore get the benefit of attaining heaven, which cannot be attained with the human body. It has to be only after the human body has died. The performance of the ritual presupposes the conviction of the Yajamana that there is a soul which is independent from the body, which survives death, which can then travel to heaven and enjoy the benefits of heaven. And therefore, without such a conviction in place, there will be no inclination to perform the rituals that have been outlined in the Vedas. Thus, the very fact that the ritual has been performed indicates the existence of the Atma. Now, the next sentence, Jantunam, Janana Shilanam, Praninam, Narajanmam, Manushyakam, Durlabhamiti. The Jagadguru is saying, amongst all the jantus, and by the word jantu, it means janana shila, those who are subject to birth and therefore death, are amongst such living beings, praninam, the Narajanma or a Manushakam, meaning a human birth, is Durlabham, is very rare indeed. Now, why is it rare? That we will see in the next class. With this, we will briefly pause and consider the rest of the vyakhya in the next session. Thus far, we have seen the Mangalacharanam for the Vivekachudamani and the Mangalacharanam for the vyakhya, and we have started to look at the commentary on the second verse. And already in the first few lines itself, we have seen a hidden depth that is being revealed in the Vyakhya by Jagadguru Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswaminaha, where he has essentially said that Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham essentially is indicative of the existence of a self that is independent from the body, which is a very important concept in Advaita. And we will see what else the Jagadguru helps us to discover in the second verse. Namaste. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.